Welcome to the Shulamite Podcast, an extension of Shulamite Ministries and Shulamite.com, with weekly interviews and teaching with author and speaker Martha Kilpatrick and hosted by John Enslow. This weekly podcast is a way to stay connected to the ministry. So come experience anointed messages, not giving just another method, but a living impartation.
This week I had something happen that gave me some things to say. I was sitting in John's living room beside his recliner, and I was doing my own writing at the time, and the Lord said, open John's book in the light of what you're looking at. And I looked down, and he was very much with his books beside his chair, and I picked it up and began to just open it at random and read, and it answered whatever I was on. But I just said to him, I want you to, we've got to get this book out. This is one of the most beautiful, exquisite, dynamic books I've ever read. It answers the hardest of questions. Is God really God? And you answer it in a dozen, if not 50 different ways, John. John has a way of tackling the worst and most difficult situations and turning them into gold. And this he did with the subject of sovereignty of God. I remember when God began to reveal to me the sovereignty, that, and I don't remember the man's name, but you would know it. I said it. I went to his book on sovereignty, and I was so disappointed because it was all scripture.
Oh, it was Pink, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, Pink did that. He did an amazing book called The Sovereignty of God. And the problem with it, it's not personal. He didn't make it deeply personal. Right. He made it deeply scriptural and doctrinal. I mean, he literally takes you from beginning to end through the scriptures and shows you the sovereignty of God, which is amazing. It's not that it doesn't have its place, because it does. Scripturally, we need to know.
It's like a doctrinal statement.
Right, and we need to know the sovereignty of God as seen through Scripture. And it's not like I don't take you through Scripture. It's not like I don't back what I say with Scripture. But what I do in this book is I put my life and heart and practicality into it. I bring the Scripture into real life, which is what I always saw Christ do.
Your book is about meeting God, and you did meet him doctrinally, spiritually, in every way, but you met him as a human being, and he is God.
Absolutely, totally sovereign.
And really, to see the sovereignty of God in its actual place that should be in our lives, it's shocking. And you have made this shocking and poetic and personal.
Right.
And so it's an amazing book. And
Thank you.
I wanted to just go back over it one more time, folks. And I want to do something we've never done. I want to ask you, learners, listeners, students who have read this book, I want to ask you to please comment on it and send it to the website, or to John personally, however you want to do it. But I think it would be interesting to find out, now that it's been out, how long, John, a year?
Yeah, I believe it's
about a year it's been in print. And it's received a lot of commendation, but it's worth a second go-around. Well, when it's called this wonderful title, Sovereign Touch, John is talking to you about how God has touched him through people, through accidents, through difficulties, through everything. That John has had the sovereign touch. And the sovereign touch is a revelation of a God, the only God. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's not a commentary. It's not a scholarly thing, though it could be. It's a man's journey. Makes everything in your life relevant to the sovereignty of God. And it's just brilliant. And when I answered my question at that morning, whatever it was, you were writing about Moses. And it's most interesting. And where you say, in essence, God said to Moses, I'm sovereign over your body. I created it. I maintained it. It is mine. The Lord has to show Moses this truth so he can prove he had power over Moses' world.
Yeah, he took it to Moses personally to show the microcosm of the macrocosm that he was in control of his entire world.
Mm-hmm. And here's what the Lord said to Moses as a quote from Exodus 4:6. Put your hand inside your cloak. So Moses put his hand inside his cloak, and when he took it out again, his hand was white as snow with a severe skin condition. Whoops. Now put your hand back into your cloak, the Lord said. So Moses put his hand back in, and when he took it out again, it was healthy as the rest of his body. In the essence, God was saying to Moses, I am sovereign over your body. I created it. I maintain it. It is mine. The Lord had to show Moses this truth so he could prove he had power over Moses' world, which included picking up a snake a number of times, as I remember. So this is, you make these biblical things relevant to your walk, and that's ingenious. And I want people to have access to it. I want it to be available and knowable so that they won't miss this. Most serious, most important thing is to know God is God. He's sovereign. But we don't know that. We really don't believe that until it is tested. And we all are being tested and pursued. And you make the pursuit a very exciting thing. So I'm delighted to go back over it again.
Well, what I do is I basically, hand walk you through how God can be sovereign over the most painful situations of your life. And that's where we really have a hard time with God and his sovereignty. His lordship is difficult to accept and receive because was he really sovereign over the pains of our life? Was he really there? Was he really present? Was he really over it?
And did he care?
And really, did he care? Did he love me enough to even care? Exactly. So I show literally how God and his sovereignty and his lordship were over and in the most painful situations of your life. Mm-hmm. And I don't sugarcoat that, nor am I really graphically explicit with it. I know that there are things in this world that have happened to people that are heinous and grotesque. And, as the subtitle said, God is either sovereign over all or he isn't sovereign at all. And we know people that have had horrible things happen. Horrible. I mean, unspeakable, literally unspeakable things. And how can God be sovereign over those horrible and unspeakable things? How could he allow it? And most of the time it happens to children. And I feel like God, through me, pouring through me, has done that, has shown that in this book.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But you do it from a personal standpoint, which makes it acceptable.
I'm not pointing fingers.
Right.
I'm in my own struggle with his sovereignty. Mm-hmm. I read this one section says, "Yep, I have called his love a prison, and it has been. I am the Lord's prisoner, bars or no bars. We are all captured into the Lord's idea of us, and if we resist, it is a prison, a solitary confinement in the walls of his thinking." And to understand that he is over all, sovereign. Sovereign is a tough one. Sovereign is
the most.
It is because we will scream and yell and fight against the sovereignty of God because we're powerless.
But you give the purpose in one statement. Our life events and situations have one purpose in their design, that we should come to know our God. Happiness in itself is not the goal, but rather the result of connecting with God. Life is a continual invitation by our Creator for us to know him in every facet of existence. That's awesome, John. That makes God acceptable. And this is the toughest concept of the Christian walk. Just to let God be God without understanding. I did it this morning for 2 hours with someone, explaining God around and beyond her suffering. And that is an adventure not to be missed. It could be painful. It could be stretching. It could be violent. But to allow yourself to know God is sovereign takes you to bliss and glory.
There's a purpose behind it all. I'm not doing it just to say, God's God, shut up and sit down. That's not really my goal at all. My goal is to make peace with the sovereign God so that you can experience life and joy and peace.
Yes, and you are sharp to not miss any event that helps you know Him.
Right.
You're brilliant at it. You turn everything into an expose of Him as He is, and you don't spare Him. Mm-mm. You don't spare man, and you don't spare God. You just go to the truth.
Right, right.
And that truth goes from being intolerable to ecstatical.
Yeah, the ecstasy of God. Absolutely.
We hope you've enjoyed the Shulamite podcast. For all the latest from Shulamite Ministries, please visit us at shulamite.com, where you'll find Martha's daily devotions, posts from getalongwithgod.com, and the online library of all of Martha's writings. At shulamite.com, downloading the free Shulamite app is easy, and livingchristianbooks.com is only a click away. Thank you for joining us on this journey to discover a God worth knowing.